It's a brand new week. Hello and welcome to A News on the Daybreak program. My name is Atim Tongana, coming to you live from Baku in Azerbaijan. Let's see the headlines. Trump orders Pentagon to cut back military exercises with South Korea. Trump's envoy has held rare talks with Hamas leaders in Egypt as Washington pushes to revive its stalled Gaza peace plan. Oil prices remain elevated as the Iran conflict and continued disruption through the Strait of Hormuz keep global markets on edge. We begin here this morning. U.S. President Donald Trump has ordered the Pentagon to cut back its military exercises with South Korea just as they were about to begin. He cited the cost of the drills and South Korea's refusal to take part in any sanctions against Iran.
Just hours before the U.S. and South Korea were to begin joint military exercises, U.S. President Donald Trump ordered the Pentagon to substantially reduce 10 days of annual drills. In a post on Truth Social, Trump linked the decision to the cost of the exercises. He also said that, although it was somewhat unrelated, South Korea had declined a request to join U.S. efforts to denuclearize Iran. Trump added that it was too late to cancel the drills altogether, but that he had instructed Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth to substantially reduce them. The Ulchi Freedom Shield exercises begins on Monday as scheduled and are due to run until the 27th of August. Around 18,000 South Korean troops are expected to participate. The drills are designed to prepare for North Korea's evolving military capabilities, including drone attacks, GPS disruption, and cyber threats. Trump also pointed to his relationship with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, raising speculation that the move could be aimed at improving ties with Pyongyang. North Korea regularly condemns the drills as preparations for an invasion. The country launched 2 ballistic missiles earlier this month, most recently last Wednesday, when it fired one from its eastern coast towards the Sea of Japan. Trump and Kim have had a volatile relationship over the years, despite holding 3 summits. Their meetings did not result in changes to North Korea's nuclear weapons or ballistic missile programs.
By a journalist at the Korea Herald, Dr. Sanjay Kumar. Hello, and thank you for your time and welcome to A News.
Thank you for having me.
So North Korea now defines South Korea as a hostile state, so to speak. So what would actually bring Pyongyang back to the negotiating table then?
See, there is no possibility right now to have the negotiations table to once again start. That is the realistic situation right now. Although from the South Korean side, the President Lee Jae-myung has been reaching out to North Korea and Kim Jong-un to have a peaceful coexistence, but the silence of North Korea on this request, it shows a big contrast. And what President Donald Trump has mentioned today, that is also raising eyebrows in the region, because North Korea and Russia alliance are growing. You know, they have signed agreement in 2024, which is growing by leaps and bounds through various means, such as military exercise, soldiers. We have even seen yesterday the naval cooperation. So these kind of cooperation is sending a very strong signal to South Korea, and it looks like North Korea is trying to leverage the strategic interest by engaging, not just Russia, but also China. And in long run, they want strategic attention from United States, and which is happening also. President Trump is mentioning Kim Jong Un and citing him as a good friend, and ready to get along well. So these kind of messages when come in the social media, it gives the entire public in South Korea a kind of message that North Korea is passively somehow ignoring the South, and they are having strategic leverage when it comes to the engagement with U.S.
Am I correct then to read from your response that there can be no peace treaty while North Korea continues to expand its nuclear arsenal?
I'm not, euphoric about this, because the requests have been made since decades, but North Korea has never agreed. And on the nuclear agenda, I mean the denuclearization agenda, they don't want any kind of even negotiation with that. And with the help of Russia now, they are going to get more emboldened when it comes to any talk on North Korea. And from South Korean perspective, it is not a breakthrough, but it's a disappointment. That is why these dialogues are not happening. So somehow President Lee Jae-myung is trying to start the dialogue at least, and as part of this peace building measures, he is seeing in long run that someday there would be some hope and time that that Kim Jong Un would realize to engage South Korea. But these all things are not going to happen in sometime soon, in near future. And that is why here the role of President Trump becomes very important. How Trump is going to engage North Korea, or whether he is interested to engage with the North on denuclearization or nuclear agenda, or even on the Russia-North Korea cooperation. That would be the most important aspect here.
So then what would South Korea have to put on the table to get Kim Jong-un to engage?
I think South Korea will have to now engage Japan into it, because what we have been seeing in last 2 days, President Putin has visited the disputed island, which was not settled during the World War II. That has raised eyebrows, and that has invited serious criticism also from Japan. And that is why now South Korea should reach to Japan, and they should bring U.S. also on the table through trilateral cooperation channel that already ROK US and US ROK Japan has. So these trilateral cooperation has to now do something, and South Korea should start engaging through that channel also. Because why I'm saying this, because President Lee Jae-myung is trying to approach. His approach has been very peaceful. He's trying to engage, but dialogue works when the other side is interested. And North Korea is not interested in South Korea. Rather than that, they are trying to engage in the regional order change. They want to leverage the US and Russia and China relationship, and this is how they want to have discussions with the US also, and they want to win when it comes to no talk on nuclear agenda. And we never know, they may also try to leverage on the discussions of sanctions, because UN sanctions on North Korea remains in place. So who knows, and Kim Jong-un might be trying to engage US through these kind of expositions that we have been seeing in last 2 days, and get the attention of President Trump, and get some exemptions from sanction. We never know.
I know you touched on the role of the U.S., but I want us to expand on that. Where does Washington fit into an agreement that South Korea wants to negotiate directly with Pyongyang?
See, South Korea wants the issue to be resolved through regional cooperation, and that is why President Lee Jae-myung is trying to approach North Korea since he has come to power, and it's almost 1 year. But results have not come. a good beginning makes a good ending, but it is not always the same. Sometimes you begin something, but it does not give the fruits that you expect, and that is why US and Japan is looking very important from security perspective. I think without serious engagement of Japan and US by South Korea is not going to bring tangible results, because North Korea is not a normal country who participates in diplomatic dialogues continuously, and that is why this regional cooperation and peaceful existence kind of narratives and requests, I'm not sure that it is going to be taken seriously by North Korea. That is why strategic options of North Korea with Moscow has to be analyzed well by South Korea, and they should bring in US and Japan into the trilateral cooperation channel. It is high time for South Korea to activate that channel to have a regional peace on the agenda.
Yeah, so then can South Korea pursue a peace regime while maintaining its military alliance with the United States, as you had earlier alluded to?
See, alliance with US for South Korea is a compulsory aspect. No matter there had been demands so from the US side after President Trump come to power, he had been continuously requesting to, asking South Korea to increase the budget. To which South Koreans have said that we already have a big budget involved in this. So US tries to leverage that, but without US, if I am realistic, I think it would not be possible for South Korea to deal with North Korea without US and taking Japan into confidence. Japan becomes secondary, but US ROK alliance, which remains ironclad, it has to be ironclad in dealing with North Korea in future talks as well as the current talks.
Speaking about those outside allies, now, does North Korea's growing military relationship with Russia make diplomacy with South Korea more difficult?
It is very difficult because earlier North Korea was in kind of isolation, because South Korea had kind of friendly relations with Russia. Right now also, the diplomatic relations are in good shape. I cannot say that there is no communication. We have ambassadors from both the countries in respective country. I mean, Moscow and Seoul both have diplomatic representations as ambassador. As ambassadors are also actively pursuing diplomacy. So situation has not is not worst, but it has worsened in the last 2 years, because North Koreans have been supplying weapons and then soldiers, and there had been recent reports that they are going to increase that number of soldiers. So that is why Seoul has diplomatic pressure, not just from US, but also from Ukraine and the European partners also, to somehow get engaged in this war from Ukraine side, to which South Korea has always maintained that we are not a country who is going to provide lethal weapons that European partners we are seeking for. And if you see the President Trump's latest comment on Truth Social also, he has said, like he has mentioned the Iranian aspect also, that they had been seeking, US had been seeking support of South Korea on denuclearization of Iran, but South Korea has said no thanks. This also raises eyebrows to many of the officials here in South Korea, because they until now they were not ready, and in future also I'm sure that South Korea is not ready to get engaged in any kind of war, whether it is in Russia, Ukraine, or Iran. That is why it is a very a very tight diplomatic rope for South Korea to deal with. It is having a very tough time for South Korea diplomatically right now.
Very interesting there. So if denuclearization is no longer on the table, what does halting North Korea's nuclear program actually mean, Dr. Kumar?
See, for North Korea, nuclear weapons have not been just the part of defense. It was having an aggressive posture in security dynamics. For North Korea, security is not just a matter of defense, but it is a matter of strategic posture and the strategic leverage which they had been using since decades to have a geopolitical leverage and geopolitical usage of it. While talking to while talking to South Korea, while talking to Japan, while talking to US, and engaging with China, and recently with Russia. If you see the Russia-Ukraine war, why North Korea had been engaged well and why they had been compensated well by Russia. It is just because of the security dynamics that they have and the military power that they have. And globally, as North Korea has emerged as a nuclear power, no matter it is not recognized by the United Nations or the IAEA. But the fact remains here in the security dynamics that North Koreans are a nuclear power. It is not being denied. And even leaders like President Trump tries to engage with Kim Jong-un, calling him a great friend. No matter talks in Hanoi or Singapore, failed. But despite those reasons, there is always a hope. Just last year, during the APEC summit, there were also speculations that President Trump and Kim may meet. So there was discussions. I think that kind of hopes are still there. No. And, in the geopolitical arena, many experts are seeing a Trump-Kim summit or Trump-Kim meeting in future that may decide the future of Korean Peninsula and the Northeast Asian security dynamics. That is why it becomes very critical here for South Korea and the regional partners such as Japan.
All right, Dr. Kumar, thank you so much for your insights on A News. We really do appreciate you taking the time all the way from the Korea Herald. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
So Iran's military has announced a new bounty targeting American service members as the conflict in the Middle East continues. Army Commander-in-Chief Amir Hatami unveiled the scheme in Tehran on Sunday. Hatami said the initiative followed requests from Iranians seeking to support the military through what he called financial jihad, adding that women would receive double the announced reward. He did not specify where or when the offer would apply, and there is no known deployment of U.S. ground forces inside Iran. Hatami also demanded that American forces leave the region as peace efforts remained stalled and tanker traffic through the Strait of Hormuz remains disrupted.
Whoever, any dear combatant of ours, kills an American or captures one and hands them over to any of the units of the Islamic Republic of Iran army, supported by those dear individuals who wish to participate in financial jihad, but under the guarantee of the army, alongside the great reward of the jihad, we will provide a proper gift. This gift is equivalent to $30,000, approximately 5 billion tomans.
Iran's parliament on Sunday approved the general principles of a bill criminalizing interviews and other communication with media outlets deemed hostile to the Islamic Republic, including U.S. and Israeli media. Violations could carry prison terms of 6 months to 2 years, while contact with other foreign media and institutions would require official notification or permission. The proposal also restricts sharing information and scientific cooperation with foreign organizations. The bill will now be debated article by article before any final text is reviewed by the Guardian Council. Mutual drone and missile attacks were reported between Russia and Ukraine at the weekend. 3 people were injured at a strike on Kiev, while deaths and injuries were also reported following Ukrainian drone attacks on several Russian regions. Both sides also said fighting continued along the front line.
Mutual attacks between Russia and Ukraine continued overnight. 3 people were injured in a Russian attack on Kyiv. Explosions were reported in several parts of the capital. Some buildings also caught fire. 4 powerful explosions were heard in central Kyiv, while 6 more explosions were reported in the Pechersky district within 3 minutes. A commercial building caught fire in the Obolonsky district. Another building was also set ablaze in the Holosivsky district. Ukraine's Air Force issued 2 warnings overnight about the threat of a ballistic missile attack. Meanwhile, Ukrainian drones attacked the Moscow region overnight. Regional Governor Andrei Vorobyov described it as one of the largest attacks on the region. An 83-year-old man was killed in Podolsk, while several other people were injured. A Wildberries warehouse was also damaged in the attack. Ukraine has targeted Wildberries facilities in recent weeks, accusing the company of transporting military-related goods. Firefighters and emergency workers were at the scene on Sunday. According to the governor, several facilities were also damaged in Domodedovo. The city is located near one of Moscow's main airports. Russia's defense ministry said 822 Ukrainian drones had been shot down across the country. Kyiv says the attacks are aimed at damaging economic infrastructure that supports Russia's military operations. A drone attack was also reported in Moscow Oblast. 2 people were injured, including a 9-year-old boy who is said to be in serious condition. The Ukrainian side said 233 combat engagements had taken place along the front line over the past 24 hours. Ukrainian forces reportedly repelled Russian attacks in several directions. Russia's defense ministry, meanwhile, said its forces had taken control of another settlement in Zaporizhzhia Oblast. According to the ministry, Russian forces struck Ukrainian logistics centers, energy facilities, transport infrastructure, and drone production sites. Mutual missile and drone attacks between the 2 sides continue.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has called for closer cooperation with UNESCO and other international organizations. He said more Ukrainian cultural heritage sites should be added to the UNESCO World Heritage List. Zelensky spoke at the ceremony marking the 975th anniversary of the Kiev-Pershik Lavra. He said Ukraine's historic sites need more protection and restoration. This includes sites in Russian-occupied areas. UNESCO Director General Khalid El-Neni also visited Lavra and expressed UNESCO's support for protecting and restoring the historic site. Lavra was damaged by a Russian strike in June. UNESCO has provided $100,000 for urgent restoration work. Switzerland will provide another $732,000 through UNESCO.
We need more cooperation with UNESCO and other global institutions that protect humanity and culture. More of our Ukrainian shrines deserve to become part of the UNESCO World Heritage and receive appropriate attention, protection and opportunities for restoration.
Romania's defense ministry says a Spanish F-18 fighter jet on a NATO air policing mission shot down a drone after it entered Romanian airspace illegally on Sunday. The ministry did not identify the drone's origin, but said the radar detected it entering Romania through neighboring Moldova. Romania, which borders Ukraine, has experienced repeated airspace incursions by Russian drones over the past 4 years, as well as mines drifting through the Black Sea along key trade and energy routes. All right, after the break, we will discuss the rest of the global stories. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're watching Daybreak. Now let's have a look at those global stories. An American missionary pilot who was kidnapped in Niger's capital in October last year has been released. That's according to U.S. President Donald Trump on his Truth Social account. Kevin Rideout was held hostage by an Islamic State affiliate in West Africa's Sahel region and was released with the help of authorities in eastern Libya under military commander Khalifa Haftar. A senior Haftar forces source said the pilot was freed in a military operation in Mali. Officials in Mali did not immediately comment. U.S. President Trump's envoy Jared Kushner has met with Egyptian President al-Sisi and Hamas officials on Sunday as part of efforts to advance Trump's Gaza peace plan. It's despite Israel continuing with airstrikes in the Strip. Hamas leader Khalil al-Hayya also met with Egypt's intelligence chief as part of the discussions. Kushner is due to meet with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Monday alongside Trump's Gaza envoy Nikolai Mladenov. Earlier this month, Netanyahu has said that Trump's latest roadmap for Gaza's peace was unacceptable.
Beautifully rebuilt.
At least 12 people were killed and 10 others seriously injured after a Polish-registered bus overturned on a motorway in eastern Hungary on Sunday. Officers believe the driver fell asleep while at the wheel. He has been taken into custody. State media reports that 35 out of the 57 passengers and 2 drivers on board have been rescued by firefighters so far. Cranes were dispatched to move the 24-ton bus to help rescue those trapped underneath. Polish Foreign Ministry said that all of the people on the bus were Polish citizens. Spain is facing mounting pressure over how to handle asylum seekers in Ceuta. On Sunday, frustration over their uncertain legal status and the authorities' response came under public view.
Hundreds of migrants have demonstrated in Ceuta, a Spanish enclave on the North African coast, following a mass arrival from Morocco 2 weeks ago. More than 72,000 people entered the territory by land or sea. Most later returned voluntarily, but an estimated 5,000 to 8,000 remain.
We are waiting for asylum because people from other countries who are here get asylum. Why is it only that Moroccans who can't get asylum? Why is it only Moroccans? What fault do we have?
Many of the Moroccans said low wages and limited job opportunities had pushed them to make the dangerous journey, despite some holding professional qualifications. They are now hoping to work in Europe and travel onwards to mainland Spain.
We are truly suffering. We are sleeping next to the sea, with cold, with bad smell. We are suffering a lot. The police doesn't let us go downtown. They always kick us out.
Ceuta's limited resources have been stretched by the arrivals, leaving authorities struggling to provide accommodation and essential services. Spanish Interior Minister Fernando Grande Marlaska said those who entered irregularly would not be allowed to remain in the enclave, travel to mainland Spain, or obtain legal status, except in rare cases involving extreme vulnerability.
Oil prices remained elevated on Monday as the lack of progress towards ending the Iran war continued to unsettle markets. Brent crude held around $88 a barrel after climbing 6% last week, while U.S. crude edged lower to about $82. Analysts say oil could remain between $70 and $100 a barrel while the Iran-Hormuz standoff continues. Asian shares were largely subdued, with Japan's Nikkei up to 0.4% and Australia's market down by 0.3%. Europe and the U.S. stock futures edged higher, with the S&P 500 up on 0.1% and the Nasdaq future gaining 0.2%. Now to a quick break. When we return, I'll discuss the key regional headlines. Please stay with us. Welcome back. You're still watching Daybreak, and thank you for staying with me this morning. Now let's return to the region. The Afghan Taliban celebrated the 5th anniversary of its return to power on Saturday. It's after the US-led coalition forces left the country in 2021. However, Afghanistan remains a country facing economic pressure and international isolation and sweeping restrictions on women and girls. Tamim Bahiz for A News reports from Kabul.
5 years ago today, scenes from this city were being watched around the world. Taliban fighters were entering Kabul. The former republic was collapsing, and thousands of Afghans were desperately trying to leave. Today, the guns of that war are largely silent. However, Afghanistan has been transformed. The Taliban's return on August 15, 2021 ended 2 decades of Western-backed government and brought the movement back to power 20 years after it had been removed. For the Taliban, the anniversary is a victory. The authorities say they have restored security, brought the country under a single administration, and expanded Afghanistan's political and economic relations with its neighbors. And on the streets of Kabul, many Afghans acknowledge that the large-scale fighting that once affected much of the country has ended.
The Islamic Emirate has both positive and negative points. Among the positive points is that security has prevailed. We can go anywhere, anytime we want, for a holiday or vacation. The same is true with infrastructure projects like the TAPI project, as well as the many road projects in cities and villages. We want to ask the Islamic Emirate to provide jobs. As you can see, there is a lack of employment. We want the government to provide us with jobs. Women should be allowed to work, especially in places such as health centers, where we need them most. And our sisters should be allowed to go to schools and receive an education.
But peace has not meant prosperity for everyone. The World Bank says Afghanistan's economy is growing again, but rapid population growth and the return of millions of Afghans are putting pressure on jobs and incomes, while GDP per person has fallen. Nowhere is the change more visible or controversial than for women and girls. Afghanistan remains the only country where girls and women are barred from secondary and higher education, including universities. UNESCO estimates 2.4 million girls have been excluded from secondary education since the Taliban returned to power. And a new UN Women research says half of the women it surveyed now leave their homes only once or twice a month. The Taliban authorities reject international criticism of their record and say women enjoy their rights under their interpretation of Islamic law and Afghan culture.
Over the past 5 years, we have had both difficult days and experienced positive changes. In terms of security, the situation has improved significantly, and major national infrastructure projects have also been implemented. However, the restrictions on women's education and employment have been very difficult for us. We want to work and continue our education. For the future, we ask the authorities to allow women to work and receive an education above grade 6.
Internationally, the picture is also changing. Russia formally recognized the Taliban government in 2025, while other countries have increased diplomatic and economic engagement with Kabul without taking that final step. Women, human rights concerns, and questions over Afghanistan's political system continue to stand in the way of broader recognition.
5 years after the Taliban returned to power, Kabul is no longer a city at war. But for millions of Afghans, the questions are now about what comes next. Jobs, education, basic freedoms, and Afghanistan's place in the world. The Taliban have secured control of the country. The bigger test now is what they choose to do with it. Tamim Bahis in Kabul, A News.
Now, staying on that regional story, I'm joined by the chairman of the Department of Politics and International Relations at the University of Sargodha in Pakistan, Professor Ashfaq Ahmed. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to A News.
Good morning, and thank you for providing me the opportunity.
So 5 years on, what has the Taliban actually delivered in terms of governance beyond simply maintaining control of the country?
If you go back 5 years ago and analyze the situation, Taliban were controlling the rural areas. The majority of the rural areas of Afghanistan, they were controlled by Taliban. And it was stated that Taliban, they rule the Afghanistan at night when American forces were there. So whether it was Hamid Karzai's government or Ashraf Ghani's government, Taliban were there. And now, after 5 years, Taliban are still there. And the problem is that they will continue to be there because the international community, it is engaged with Taliban. And if you if you look at the situation, you will find that presently, Taliban, they have put a restriction on women and particularly female education. So what they have delivered extrajudicial killings of the Afghan people. They have put innocent people behind the bars because of the moral policing. And what they have delivered poverty because at the moment the poverty is on high, the inflation rate is increasing, and moreover, humanitarian crisis Taliban have delivered to the Afghan people.
Some ask this question, Professor, whether the Taliban's ability to provide security come at the cost of Afghanistan's political and social freedoms.
If you talk about the political freedom of Afghan women particularly, you will find that 22 million Afghan women, they have been systemically erased from the public life. They have been denied rights to participate in jobs, or they have been denied rights to the education. 2.4 million female or girls, they have been denied the right to have education beyond primary level, and moreover, women, they have been barred from having admission in university. And if you talk about their participation in the health sector, they are also being denied. And this denial from to participate in the health sector, it has come with the two problems. First, there are no women to treat women. And secondly, because there are no women, according to Afghan practices, the traditional practices, male doctors cannot treat female. So that is the second problem. So moreover, the social problems which have been added to the life. Afghanistan is the worst country in the world for women. And female or women, they are committing suicide because they are hopeless because of this entire situation.
What a sad reality there, Professor, that you're painting. Some say then that Taliban has gained more diplomatic engagement without gaining broad recognition. Is that distinction becoming increasingly relevant in terms of practice?
As far as the international recognition is concerned, only Russia is the country which has recognized formally Afghanistan, while the diplomatic failure of Afghanistan included none of the Islamic countries have recognized Afghanistan. If you go back in 1995, or the first Taliban regime, that was recognized by Pakistan and Saudi Arabia, but this time nobody has recognized them. And moreover, international community, that though it has been engaged with Afghanistan. For example, if you look at the Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, he visited Kabul, and then Amirullah Muttaqi and along with Foreign Minister visited India. Similarly, Chinese are engaged with Afghanistan, but there is no de jure recognition of Afghanistan. European Union, though it has also engaged with Afghanistan, but or to some extent, the United States of America is engaged with Afghanistan, but there is no formal recognition of Afghanistan. Now, there are several factors due to which Afghan government has so far been not recognized by the international community. For example, in Doha agreement, when it was signed by the Abdul Ghani Baradar and Zalmay Khalilzad representing the United States of America, it was agreed by the Afghan representatives that they will be forming inclusive government, but there is no formal framework up till now, even after 5 years. And there is no representation of minorities, whether they are religious minorities or ethnic minorities. So that is one of the problems. The second problem is human rights violation, which I already referred to as extrajudicial killing by the Afghan official. And moreover, a UN report has also talked about the presence of ETIM or IMU and TTP, Al-Qaeda, ISK. These terrorist groups are present there. It was decided, or it was agreed by the Taliban representative in the agreement, that they will not allow any terrorist group to use Afghan soil, but that soil is being used against Pakistan continuously since they are in power. So that is the second issue due to which Taliban have not been recognized. And I don't see that in future Taliban regime will be formally recognized by any other government, because they have created the situation worse for themselves.
Yeah, so Professor, I'm glad you touched on the issue around Russia's decision to recognize the Taliban in 2025, which was quite significant. Why has this not triggered a wider shift among other major superpowers?
I have referred to the UN report that it has highlighted the presence of the East Turkestan Islamic Movement or Islamic Movement of Uzbekistan or ISK. Similarly, Americans, they are engaged with Taliban, but they are not formally, they have not recognized, because their concerns regarding counterterrorism have not been addressed. As far as Pakistan is concerned, we recently, Pakistan allowed 70 trucks that were carrying humanitarian assistance aid to Afghanistan that were allowed, but Pakistan has not recognized the Afghan regime because of the fact that Afghan soil is being used against Pakistan. So these are the factors, the geopolitical issues, and Taliban's stubbornness that they are not having respect for the international law to live as a peaceful international citizen in the international community. So that is the major issue. And secondly, as I was talking about the human rights violation or the female exclusion from their society. For example, European Union, it is trying to persuade the Taliban regime to allow women to participate, because exclusion of women from the workplace has resulted in $920 million loss because half the population has been denied right. And similarly, women in Afghanistan, an average woman, she leaves her home once or twice a month because public places have been barred for the women. So these are the issues due to which international community is reluctant to recognize Taliban regime or to give it formal recognition.
Professor, we really do appreciate your insights on A News. That's all we have time for this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Now, Turkey has marked the 27th anniversary of the 17th of August 1999 Marmara earthquake. Ceremonies were held in Yalova, Kocaeli and Sakarya to honor those who lost their lives. The disaster killed more than 17,000 people, injured 44,000 others, and left around 200,000 people homeless.
In Yalova, residents and officials marched from the July 15th Democracy and Republic Square to the earthquake memorial. At 3:02 local time, the exact moment the earthquake struck 27 years ago, people laid carnations at a monument bearing the names of the victims. The ruling Justice and Development Party Deputy Chairman Ahmet Büyükgümüş said Turkey had gained significant experience in disaster management since 1999, particularly in search and rescue, construction standards and emergency coordination. He also stressed the importance of making cities more resilient and accelerating urban transformation before another major disaster occurs. In Gölcük, Kocaeli, the epicenter of the 1999 earthquake, residents gathered at the earthquake memorial on the Kavaklı coast. A wreath was laid at 3:02, followed by a minute of silence and prayers. Participants also threw carnations into the sea in memory of the victims. Commemorations were also held in Sakarya, where prayers and Quran recitations were held at the July 15th Democracy Square. Sakarya Governor Rahmi Doğan said Turkey must accept the reality that it lies in an earthquake-prone region and focus on constructing safe buildings on stable ground. Officials across the three provinces called for stronger disaster preparedness, safer construction, and continued urban renewal to reduce the impact of future earthquakes. The magnitude 7.4 Marmara earthquake struck northwestern Turkey on the 17th of August 1999, with its epicenter in Gölcük. It killed 17,480 people and injured nearly 44,000, according to parliamentary figures cited by Anadolu Agency. The disaster caused widespread destruction across Kocaeli, Sakarya, Yalova, Istanbul and Düzce, leaving around 200,000 people homeless and tens of thousands of homes and businesses destroyed.
Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan says Egypt could become the latest country to join a new defense pact between Turkey, Saudi Arabia and Pakistan. Speaking at Al Jazeera, Erdogan described Cairo's accession as possible and the pact remains open to additional members. Known as the Mecca Joint Defense Agreement, the pact requires its members to respond collectively if any signatory faces an external attack. Now, that Mecca Joint Defense Agreement between Turkey, Saudi Arabia and Pakistan was praised by U.S. President Donald Trump on Sunday in a post on his Social Truth account. The agreement was signed after Iran launched missiles at Gulf oil exporters. Under the pact signed on the 7th of August, an armed attack against any member would be regarded as an attack against all, similar to NATO's Article 5 Collective Defense Clause. Now, residents of Hawaii were assessing the aftermath of Lala on Sunday after the storm battered the island chain over the weekend. Officials urged people to remain cautious as recovery operations got underway.
Fallen trees, flooded roads and damaged power lines were reported across Hawaii after Lala passed close to the islands without making landfall. PowerOutage.us said nearly 130,000 customers were without electricity early on Sunday, mostly on the Big Island, Oahu and Maui.
We haven't had electricity all night, so I just wanted to get out here and kind of assess for myself what's going on. It's been a pretty challenging experience, just trying to, all these trees are down with on top of wires, so we're just hoping emergency crews get to us and help us out a little bit.
Authorities reported one death in a car-related incident, while the National Weather Service said 2 homes had been swept away. Hawaiian Electric said strong winds, heavy rain and blocked roads were hampering efforts to restore power. Lala reached Category 1 hurricane strength on Saturday, with maximum sustained winds of 120 kilometers per hour, before weakening to a tropical storm. The National Hurricane Center warned that life-threatening conditions remained possible, with up to 20 centimeters of further rain forecast for the Big Island and windward Maui. Total rainfall in some areas could approach 90 centimeters since the storm began affecting Hawaii late on Friday. Hilo and Kona international airports were closed on Saturday, with state officials saying they were expected to reopen on Sunday and advising passengers to check with their airlines.
All right, that's the news for this Monday morning. Thank you for joining me, Tim Tongana, and the Daybreak team behind the scenes. Stay tuned to A News for all your international and regional stories. Goodbye.